Can I say, first of all, it's a huge pleasure, of course, to be here to do this Relate lecture. And I'd also like to thank, on a wider context, Relate and other members of the Relationship Alliance, some of whom, or many of whom, I've actually spoken to before, 1+1, TWCR, Marriage Care, etc., as well as the small and local organisations around the country for the invaluable work you all do to support couples and families. And I'd also like to welcome the latest report that Relate has produced, published, I think, today, all together now. And the report, having gone through it, not in massive detail to be fair, but I have read sections of it, I think the areas that are important is that it focuses on the need to provide the right support to couples at the right time, with prevention and early intervention being crucial to avoiding a relationship breakdown in the first place, which I think is a statement for some that should be obvious, but a statement of reality, often not observed by many of my colleagues and myself too often. And this is absolutely right, and I want to return to all of this, therefore, slightly later in the speech. First, if I can, I'd like to set out why I believe strong, lasting relationships are important in a wider context of Britain today. And I want to highlight the work that is underway right now and the plans we have to take us further forward in the future. For me, it is strong relationships that form the foundation, clearly at the end of it all, of strong families, and strong families that create a strong and stable society. These are absolutely critical and balancing components. And that sense we should value and cherish the family as a national asset. And yet for a while in British politics it seemed that politicians, even successive governments, had in a sense turned their back on this issue, this area of the family, often too scared to try and understand its undeniable significance. And instead, too often politicians whitewashed the term in some kind of opaque way, unwilling to see how structure matters in shaping of young lives. And one of the critical areas which has too often been forgotten about is relationship support when families get into difficulty, and that is the consequent result of not wanting to actually talk about this or look at it. You actually then fail to recognise some of the component issues. And interestingly here, that evidence shows that keeping families together really matters and works. Stable families in which both parents play a strong role are families where children's outcomes will be better on every score. The CSJ published a load of information on this in Breakthrough and Breakdown Britain, but others have done the same since then, and many of you have yourself taken up that particular cudgel and made even greater advances in recognising that. And the practical effects of that are absolutely enormous, even in fiscal terms, to any government. And so it must make sense to make sure support is first and foremost widely available. So I am pleased that late in the last Parliament my department took on a policy responsibility for relationship support. We're putting relationships and the family at the heart of what we do in government. And to help do this, we have created the Family Test. This test is about ensuring we look at the impact policies could have on families and family formation. For too long, the family was an adjunct, a word in a speech, not necessarily a core component of actual policy making. We want to put that right. For example, doubling funding for supporting relationships is a start. We are investing an additional 70 million over the next 5 years, and I'm sure that extra funding will be well received, and I hope well received by the sector. And I want you all here and the wider audience to be part of that important work, helping us deliver support for people in new and innovative ways. Now, I'm passionate about building on that support we and so many in this room believe in and provide. And the question often is, why do I believe that you in the relationship support sector are so important for the country as a whole? And I think it's because from a young age it is the family that helps ultimately define us. It helps shape us as we go forward, that tells us who we are and where we've come from. It nurtures our aspirations and our hopes. From the family we learn about parental unconditional love, something quite often forgotten about. We learn about relationships based on trust and forgiveness. Stable families give us our compass through which we navigate our lives. But too often some families do not instill these qualities in their children, and they end up then taking the wrong path. The legacy that leaves us all with is immense. And too often when a family breaks down, parents separate, and a child falls out of that secure, loving setting, it's not only a personal tragedy for those involved, of course, but the scars are borne by the rest of society as well. There is the financial cost to the economy, of course, estimated at some £47 billion a year of family breakup. But then there's also the social cost. Family breakdown is a root cause of poor life chances and, in many cases, ultimate poverty. Without that love, stability and support, we know that children in unstable families are more likely to have poor mental and physical health, underperform at school, abuse drugs or alcohol, and be involved in crime and antisocial behaviour. Although these are trends, not always applicable to everybody, they are critical trends, and particularly where people are on the margins, these trends really, really matter and become significant. Unfortunately, this is a cycle that repeats itself over and over, with children who come from broken families often falling into the mistakes of their parents, including themselves going on to have very unstable and poor relationships. The dysfunction and destruction stays in the family. It crashes through the generations, and that is why stopping this cycle is absolutely vital. Fundamentally, the evidence shows that having two parents in a stable, loving relationship is, of course, one of the best ways to ensure a child has the best chances of getting on in life. And we shouldn't be shy about saying that a child is better, therefore, with both parents. Of course, many lone parents do a remarkable job in very, very difficult circumstances. Yet, understandably, our starting point has to be that it is both parents together that provide the best foundation for children to develop. We want to help and assist all those who have difficulties and problems. But starting with that base position is important because it's where we therefore want to apply our support. And that is why we should do all we can to therefore help them stay together, if it's at all possible, as that family unit. And for me, I believe that a relationship is much stronger, and therefore the family is made stronger through, ultimately, marriage. On this National Marriage Week, I believe that the commitment of marriage really does make a difference. You'd be surprised to know how many politicians tie themselves in knots just to avoid that particular word. And yet, to believe in marriage does not mean that you don't care about those others, couples and families who aren't married. That is not the same. A belief in something doesn't mean you therefore have no concern or care about other things. Of course you do. You want to support cohabiting partners to be good parents, if that is their decision. But I believe marriage is more likely to provide the stability and permanence that children need to thrive. Most of the evidence bears this out. For example, cohabiting couples make up only around 1/5 of parents, but account for almost half of all that family breakdown. And after years of decline, the number of couples choosing to get married is rising, whilst numbers getting divorced is falling. This is an encouraging trend, as I believe marriage is at the root, as I said earlier, of that family stability throughout society, whether you are married or not. But couples should get married for the right reasons. A recent study in the US has shown that more money a couple spends on their wedding, intriguingly, the more likely they are to separate. Now, I know not whether this is a verified study, it sounds like it is, but whether it's true or not, couples underestimating what the day-to-day commitment that they are making when they marry means certainly one of the issues which counselling points to. For marriage is obviously more than just a vow. It is a lifetime commitment. That is the base from which you start. A commitment that will have to endure through thick and thin in difficult circumstances. And what many counsellors will tell you, and certainly I have in the past had them tell me this, is that debt is at the root cause in many of that family instability. So with a couple on average now spending around £20,000 arranging their wedding, many may start married life, and this is what worries me, in serious amounts of debt before they begin. For surely what we risk is something countercultural which could be damaging, where for some newly married couples, the celebration of the start of that commitment could actually end up contributing to it becoming to an end further down the road. I say these things are issues that need to be dealt with. But the truth is, no matter what type of relationship, no matter how strong the love and commitment couples have for each other or for their children, most relationships, most families will at some point or other face significant challenges. That love that started it off will be tested. That commitment that you began with will face endless compromises. And it is thanks to all of you here today, and I mean that genuinely, and the support your organizations provide, that families do not have to face these challenges alone. They have somewhere to turn to. And seeking relationship support should not just follow a crisis. Too often couples are left trying to pick up the pieces of a shattered relationship, when what they really needed was support to prevent those cracks from appearing and developing in the first place. When what they really needed was that process. Prevention is paramount, as in everything else. Early intervention is absolutely essential. And we need to provide the right support at the right time. So how best can we do that? Most of the pressure points that couples face together are usually accompanied by significant changes in their lives. In navigating through these changes, the couple, either together or separately, will usually come into contact with a particular service or a profession. Whether it is children's services, the NHS, the justice system, or even the welfare system, every time someone comes into contact with any one of these services, it is an opportunity to introduce or reintroduce that process of relationship support, reinforcing that process where it is necessary and where it is possible, at a time when it is in fact needed. The importance of relationships should be woven into the fabric of most mainstream services like these, embedded into those frontline services that couples come into contact with. We know that those working with families, day in and day out, see the impact that family breakdown has. They want to help, but need the skills and training to do so. So let me take the example of a couple expecting a baby. Becoming a parent is one of the most rewarding experiences there is. I'm sure most of us here and will have some real personal experience of that. But of course, it can be incredibly stressful, particularly in the early years. We know that risk of couples breaking up increases dramatically when they have a child. That is why we are piloting relationship education in perinatal classes to prepare expectant couples for the changes that a baby will bring to their relationships. An important part of that support down the line is parenting classes. We have already announced that we want to see new parents taking classes as part of a normal part of parenting. Our Life Chances strategy will say more on that. But this is about building support for couples in the local services they use, and that is the purpose of our local family offer. Working with 1+1 and the Innovation Unit, we are supporting 12 local areas to work up their own strategies to embed support for parents in local family services. And I'm pleased to be able to announce today that we will extend that work to more areas across the country later this year. We will do this through the new Healthy Relationships Fund. This will support those councils who are committed to bringing forward comprehensive strategies to strengthen family life. The investment will support the culture change that is needed, and it will help, I hope, ensure the evidence of what works, leading us in shaping local services rather than the other way round. And by taking this approach, we can support couples to stay together through some of the most difficult moments of their lives, but we have to be realistic. Not all support can be about keeping couples together. Sometimes it's about helping them if and when this breakup becomes inevitable. But how partners separate and deal with each other is also important, not only for their own health and prospects, but crucially, those of any children that they have. If it is done badly, that precious connection between the child and one of their parents can become completely severed. And the effect on the child can be enormous. And this is a particular problem for fathers who can become estranged from their children. More than 1 million children in the UK currently have no contact with their father while they are growing up. It is a shocking figure, and beneath it is a myriad of stories of heartbroken children unable to see their father and get the help and support that only he can possibly give. Even worse, there is evidence that shows this separation can impact on their brains, making them more likely, often in a sense, as this information shows, to be more aggressive and angry in the context of their lives. So now our Innovation Fund has been testing different ways of supporting separating parents so that they work better together in the interests ultimately of the child. We are now looking at that impact these projects have made, and we will use that experience for them to guide us as we invest extra money for that relationship support. The fund has given rise to some new and innovative approaches. For example, it has supported programs to specifically help fathers connect with their children who have lost that connection. And by looking at issues around bonding and reflecting on their own childhood, fathers can start to understand their own child's needs better. Other support tested has included online and digital help for parents to understand the impact of conflict on their children's lives as well. And one such support service is Relate's online service that provides access to counsellors, mediators, and family lawyers. One such support service that is alone in an organisation cannot do the job, but it gives us a good indication of the direction of travel as to where we should be. And that's an important way of empowering people at the same time to resolve issues for themselves. So it's on this particular point that I want just to turn now. I believe couples together can be best placed to resolve conflicts and issues, couples themselves without that intervention of others that may separate them. Yes, with the right support and guidance, but it is them who I believe should come to resolution together. They should make the joint compromises and do what is right for themselves and for their children. And nowhere is that more relevant than in the child maintenance system, which we are overhauling at the moment. In the past, going down the statutory route would often make an already difficult situation far, far worse. Separating parents would be sucked into a complex, incomprehensible system, one that is by its very nature unbelievably adversarial, which ends up pitting one parent against another. Instead, the reforms that we're bringing through at the moment to the Child Maintenance and Enforcement Commission, I have ensured and insisted, have made the process simpler, I believe less stressful, easier to use. But ideally, no couple should want to end up in court. And that's why we are in this process now for the first time, supporting couples to try and come to their own arrangements first without actually going down that statutory route at all where their government gets involved, because all the evidence shows that where a couple do reach an arrangement that they achieve themselves, they are more likely to stick to that arrangement, and that will benefit both parents. Once you are at that stage, you still have to have at the heart of what you're doing the needs of the child. And I believe we have made progress, and there are still too many disputes, however, being settled inside the courts. And the support for separating parents is still too fragmented and hard to navigate. I accept that. But I am determined to try and change that. And that is why, alone in my department, I believe we have now decided to work with the Ministry of Justice to help separating couples sort issues out themselves without that process of intervention. So, lasting, stable relationships are obviously not easy. It takes hard work, understanding, and of course, ultimately, compromise means give and take. But like everything in life that requires you to stick to it, you have to work at it, and the rewards themselves become apparent, even if sometimes only in hindsight. I want more people to have the chance to enjoy those rewards and to understand better that this is a process that rewards not just them, but their children and the wider society as well. But the fact is, as a country, we have not recognized enough the values of stable families, what they bring to, and their importance not just for children's life chances, but for the wider life chances of those around them. And that is why we are putting support for relationships in the family at the heart of the policy making that we are now undertaking. Doubling free childcare, helping couples share their parental leave, recognizing marriage and the tax system. This is just mentioning a few that we've already been engaged in. And guided by the family test, we are once again bringing forward policies that are first and foremost going to be about supporting the family. And I chair the Social Justice Cabinet Committee, and I can tell you that I am able, therefore, to bring all the other heads of the departments together over this family test and to ensure that we agree that what we're bringing forward as policy proposals meets the family test, that it does not in any way damage or deter families from staying together or even coming together. As a country, we are still too quick to give up on families when they do face difficulties. And that is why we need to double that funding for relationship support in the first instance and put that support at the heart of frontline services that couples use. For me, the family isn't just about two people. It isn't just about two people plus their children. It is about stable and strong heart of a decent and functioning society, one that nurtures and encourages. And that is why family policy has to be at the heart of all policy, but not just in what we say, but making what we do the key now for the first time that it is, and that we may continue to ensure that it remains at the heart of government policy making. Thank you.